Welcome to our in-depth session on revenue recognition for the sale of goods under ASPE 3400. We will go through the key criteria and work through some practical examples to reinforce our learning. Today, we'll explore how to properly apply the standard to both single and multiple deliveries, ensuring that you have a clear understanding of when and how to recognize revenue according to these guidelines. ASPE 3400 is designed to help private enterprises recognize revenue in a way that accurately reflects their financial statement. The standard provides a framework for determining when revenue should be reported, ensuring that it aligns with the completion of performance obligations and the transfer of risk and rewards. It's important to know that the standard outlines criteria for determining the appropriate timing and the amount of revenue to be reported. So, key criteria for revenue recognition. There are a total of 4 criteria. Number 1, risk and rewards transferred. Significant risk and rewards of ownership must be transferred to the buyer. Next is collectibility. It must be probable that the economic benefit will flow to the enterprise. Third, measurability. The amount of revenue can be reliably measured, including considerations for potential returns. And lastly, performance. The enterprise must have fulfilled its obligations with delivery or service rendered, and the seller's price to the buyer being fixed or determinable. Single deliveries overview. The definition is transactions involving one-time shipment or delivery of goods. In a single delivery transaction, the entire sale occurs with a single shipment or delivery. Revenue recognition is relatively simple because it happens at one point in time. This is very straightforward as the entire transaction is completed in a single event. Risk and rewards transferred, single delivery. Transfer point is risk and reward transfer when the goods are delivered to the buyer. To recognize revenue for single delivery, it's essential that the significant risk and rewards of ownership transfer to the buyer at the time of delivery. This means that the buyer is responsible for any potential loss or damage and has control over the use or benefit derived from the goods. Collectibility single delivery. Assessment is whether it is probable that the payment will be collected. Collectibility refers to the likelihood that the seller will receive payment for the delivered goods. If there are uncertainties about the buyer's ability to pay, or if the payment terms are questionable, revenue should not be recognized until there is reasonable assurance that the payment will be collected. Measurability single delivery. Measurability means that the revenue amount must be accurately and reliably determined. For single deliveries, this involves having a fixed sales price and accounting for any possible returns or discounts. This ensures that the recognized revenue truly reflects the value of the transaction. Performance single delivery. So, obligations fulfilled. The seller must have completed all performance obligations. Performance is evaluated based on whether the seller has met all the contractual obligations. For single deliveries, this occurs when the goods are delivered and there is no further obligations remaining. This completion of performance allows for the recognition of revenue at that point. So maybe we can do a practice example. XYZ Ltd, a company specializing in high-end electronic gadgets, have entered into a transaction to sell 100 units of a new model of smartwatches to retailer ABC retailers. The contract terms stipulate delivery within 30 days, with payment due within 60 days of delivery. The return policy allows for 10% of the goods to be returned within 15 days of delivery, and the price per unit is fixed at $500. So, to determine the issue, revenue recognition for the sale of smartwatches. So, let's examine the 4 criteria. Risk and reward transferred. Risk and reward transfer upon delivery. Next is collectibility. It is probable economic benefits from ABC retailers. Measurability. Revenue is reliably measured at $50,000 with a 10% return allowance. And lastly, performance. Obligations performed with delivery and fixed price. So this is met. Based on the analysis, XYZ Ltd should recognize revenue from the sale of smartwatches to ABC retailers as it meets all 4 criteria of ASPE 3400. The revenue to be recognized is $50,000 with an allowance for potential returns of 10%. Multiple deliveries overview. The definition is transactions involving goods delivered in stages or multiple shipments. Multiple deliveries involve series of shipments or stages over time. Revenue should be recognized progressively as each part of the transaction is fulfilled. This process is more complex than single deliveries because it requires tracking and evaluating performance obligations for each part of the transaction. It requires careful tracking of performance obligations and separate evaluation for each delivery. Now moving on to risk and reward transferred for multiple deliveries. In multiple deliveries, the transfer of risk and rewards occurs with each shipment or stage. You must evaluate each delivery or stage separately to determine when control and ownership transfer. Revenue should be recognized for each part as the risk and reward associated with the part transferred to the buyer. So recognize revenue for each part as risk and rewards transfer. Collectibility multiple deliveries. With multiple deliveries, collectibility must be assessed individually for each delivery or stage. This involves evaluating the likelihood of receiving payments for each part of the transaction. Adjust revenue recognition based on the collectibility of each stage. If there are concerns about payment for any part, it may affect when revenue can be recognized for that stage. Measurability multiple deliveries. Measurability in multiple deliveries requires that the revenue for each delivery or stage can be reliably determined. This includes accounting for any potential discounts, returns, or allowances specific to each stage. Accurate calculation and thorough documentation are crucial to ensure that each part of the transaction is correctly reported. To maintain accurate documentation and calculation for each delivery. Performance for multiple deliveries. Performance for multiple deliveries is recognized as each performance obligation is fulfilled. Progressive recognition. Recognize revenue as performance obligations are fulfilled for each stage. This requires careful tracking of delivery or stage to ensure that all contractual terms are met. Contractual terms ensure that all obligations for each part of the transaction are met. Revenue is recognized progressively as each part of the transaction is completed. ABC Manufacturing Inc. has entered into a contract to sell 100 units of high-tech machinery to XYZ Corp. The contract stipulates that the machinery will be delivered batches of 20 units per month over a period of 5 months. The agreed price is $50,000 per unit, with payment terms set at 30 days after each delivery. The contract includes a policy allowing returns within 30 days of delivery, subject to a 10% restocking fee and a 1-year warranty on all units. So to identify the issue, ABC Manufacturing Inc. needs to determine the appropriate timing for revenue recognition under ASPE 3400 for the sale of goods with multiple deliveries. So let's now look at 4 revenue criteria. Number 1, risk and rewards transferred. Each delivery of 20 units transfers significant risks and rewards of ownership to XYZ Corp. The risk of loss and benefits of ownership are transferred upon delivery. So this is met. Second is collectibility. It is probable that economic benefits will flow to ABC Manufacturing Inc. as XYZ Corp. has a good credit history and has agreed the payment terms. Payment is expected within 30 days of each delivery, so the collectibility criteria is met. Third is measurability. The revenue amount can be reliably measured at $50,000 per unit, and any potential returns are accounted for with the 10% restocking fee. So this is met. Lastly, performance. ABC Manufacturing has performed its obligations by delivering the units as per the contract. The price is fixed and determinable at $50,000 per unit. So this is met. So for recommendation, ABC Manufacturing Inc. should recognize revenue for each batch of 20 units upon delivery, as all 4 ASPE revenue criteria are met at the time of each delivery. This approach ensures that revenue recognition aligns with the transfer of risk and rewards, collectibility, measurability, and performance obligations. So today we covered ASPE 3400 sale of goods for single deliveries and multiple deliveries, as well as the practice questions. If you have any questions, you feel free to ask anytime or leave me a message or email me. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.